I was going to start with a little bit of background just on NAD and who we are. So let me just jump over and make that slide change. But yeah, so this is well, NAD, you've probably heard of it. We've been around in the
Well,
hi-fi channel for over 50 years.
I could do with coffee though.
Show us what they want first.
No, fuck them.
Coffee.
Does someone need to mute their microphone or?
Yeah, if everyone could, that'd be handy. Thanks.
Thank you. Mute the microphone.
Yeah, we're just getting a bit of background noise there. So
Oh, yeah.
cool. All right. But yeah, so we've been around for 50 years in the hi-fi channel, but we only really entered the CI channel in a more focused way in around 2016 when we launched the CI 580 and the 720, which is a four-zone streamer. You'll be aware of these products and a single zone streaming amplifier. And at that time, we didn't really have any experience or knowledge of CI. And so we kind of got those products to get a foot in the door, but we've now been in the market quite, obviously for going on 10 years now. And that's really given us a foot in, along with our sister brand Blue Sound. We've got really quite a strong footing in the CI channel now. A couple of big landmarks from a software perspective as well were 2020, where we launched version 3.0 of BlueOS, which really made it a lot more robust and more suitable for CI use and large scale deployments. And then 4.0 was the last piece of the jigsaw on that side, where we launched a much more intuitive app with a better user interface. So we've really been picking up a lot of traction since those updates. And what it's enabled us to do is talk to more integrators, talk to more dealers, get a feel for what the market requirements are. And what we really wanted to do was reimagine the CI offering that we have and not just launch another bunch of Me Too streaming products or streaming amplifiers. We put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into doing something very different and very focused on what integrators actually need. So this is, a lot of what you're going to see is direct feedback from the market. And I just wanted to stress that point. So yeah, as I said, we kicked off the project about 2 years ago to completely reimagine this. And the products I'll show you today are the first in a whole new series of products. So we've got quite a few lined up, but we've kicked off with these to get us going. The reason we've gone with the three products that we're starting with is because they don't replace anything. So these are all new products to the range, and then we'll possibly start updating some of the existing products further down the line. So we started off with some sort of key design principles during the development. You can see them on screen here. So the first one, ease of installation. We were very conscious that anything we do, we wanted it to be really, really easy to specify, really easy to install, looking at small details, just like how easy to dispose the packaging is, how easy the wiring is, how easy to install them, specifying the systems. You don't need to order lots of different accessories and bits and pieces to make it all work. So we've designed a really neat way of mounting the products in the rack, which I'll cover later. And then the next principle was efficiency, mainly space efficiency. We wanted to do something really compact and really efficient in the rack. To make that work, we have to do a very energy efficient amplifier design on the amplifier products. So, low heat output was always going to be a requirement to make it compact, and we think we've managed that as well. Quality and reliability, it's a bit of a given for us. We're all about audio quality. That's our core thing as a brand with NAD. It's quality, but also value. So with the NAD engineering on the mechanical side and then BlueOS on the software side, we can offer a really, really high quality platform. And then flexibility, scalability. We really wanted these products to be versatile and we wanted to be able to deploy them in different ways and for integrators to find lots of different ways to build systems. So, we want products that can adapt to any type of project. So whether it's a very small installation, a few zones of audio or a media room, right through to a much larger project, whether it needs to be centralized in a rack or distributed out throughout the property, or whether it's integrating or not, we wanted to come up with lots of different products and features that can tick every box, and hopefully we've achieved that. So one of the great things about BlueOS being our own software platform is that we're actually able to design features in the software side specifically for certain use cases, and you'll see a couple of those coming up, so that's pretty cool. All right, let's take a look at the first three models then. As I say, these don't replace anything. The CI5 810, the 720 will continue for now. These are three new models that for now expand the range. So the first one is the PA460. So just to explain the naming convention here, P for power, A for amplifier, and then it's 4 channels by 60 watts. So this is a 4-channel power amplifier. We used to have a model called the CI940. We discontinued it a few years ago, and ever since then we've really needed to replace it. We've been able to now do it in a much more compact. That was a 2U full width product. All of these new modular products are 1/3 of a U wide by 1U tall. So we've done it in a much more compact way. Some of the spec on this, as you can see, it's 4 channels. It's 240 watts of total power. It can either be used in a 4x60 or a 2x120 configuration. That's using a feature called dynamic power management, which I'll explain in a little bit. On the inputs, it's all fairly standard for a power amp, but you've got gain pots on your inputs, you've got stereo mono selection on your inputs. You've got settings where you can have line input 1 play over all 4 channels. You've got a loop out from input 1 so that you can daisy chain them together if you need to have more than 4 channels to one source. And even though the amplification is very cool, we've put a thermostatic fan in there as a kind of backstop for that. So reliability was really important, being able to run cool in the rack. So this is a perfect partner for our NAD AV receivers, which all have pre-outs, and it's also really useful in a multi-room system as well as just a power amplifier. The rack density is really high here, so with this you can have 3 of these in a 1U space. You're getting 12 channels by 60 watts in a 1U rack space. And this will start shipping next month, so these are actually in transit right now to our European warehouse, and Anatech will be able to get a hold of these very soon. MSRP 799. All right, the next product is the NAD CIS1. So that's a streamer, 1 zone. So a single zone streamer to add to our 4-zone streamer. And this just adds a layer of scalability. So sometimes you maybe just want to do 1 or 2 streams into a matrix amplifier and run it that way rather than have a stream in every zone. So we wanted to have a single zone option. We're using a really high quality ESS Sabre DAC. It's designed to be rack mountable, so the connectivity kind of reflects that. We've got optical coax and analog inputs. You'll notice we've got 2 sets of analog outputs, which I'll explain that later. We've got a sub out, and we've got a trigger input, which is, again, I'll explain why that's there. We've also got the trigger out as well. You've got IR in. And you might notice as well there, we've got the option of either PoE or DC power. So again, this comes back to that ease of installation where we included PoE so that you can have 1 cable for power, audio, and control, again, making that really simple. All right, so that's the S1. And again, that'll be shipping. It's going to be around end of October, beginning of November, depending on how quick we can get them here. After production, and that'll also retail at 799. And then the SA2120 is a streaming amplifier. So SA streaming amplifier. We've called it the 2120. It does actually share the same 4-channel amplifier platform as the PA460. So you'll see that it has 2 sets of stereo outputs there. And again, I'll explain the different use cases on those. But we called it the 2120 to avoid confusion with the PA460 as much as anything else. We do also think the default kind of use for this is as a stereo streaming amplifier in a media room or a multi-room audio system. So it's 100, again, it's 240 watts total power. That's continuous and 8 ohms. And you've got direct digital amplification on there again, which runs very cool. We do think this product will get used a lot in the room as opposed to in the rack. So again, the connectivity, we've designed it around that. So we've added HDMI eARC. We've got optical, we've got 3.5mm aux. We've also got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi this time. So the S1 doesn't have any Wi-Fi because, it will be connected in the rack via Ethernet. But we've given this the option so that if you have that requirement in a room, you can do that. Again, you can see an input trigger. I'll explain that later. You've got IR if you need it. It'll be Dirac Live ready at an additional license cost, and it will run on AC power. So again, this is a step up product from the CI 720, not a replacement. It's 1299 retail, and that'll start shipping at the same time as the S1 at the end of October, beginning of November. So let's have a look at, we talked about ease of installation, so let's have a look at some of these features that we've implemented to try and make that as simple as possible. So the first thing to talk about here is a proprietary method of connecting these products in the rack without needing a rack shelf, without any accessories or joining plates. We've called this chassis link, and basically on each unit, on one side you've got keyhole slots, and on the other you've got specifically designed shoulder bolts with rubber gaskets where you connect the two units together. And you can connect up to 3 in a row. As I say, they're 1/3 wide. So you simply push them together, lock them into place. It's very easy to do. And then you mount them in the rack as one piece. So you can see the various combinations here. The top row there, you've got 3 units mounted. We supply the short rack ears for that scenario. Then where you've got 2, you would have a longer rack ear and a blanking plate. Again, they're supplied with every unit. And then if you've got 1 unit, if you want to, you can mount it in the center of the rack using 2 longer rack ears, which also act as blanking plates, or you can pop it on a shelf. We provide optional rubber feet on there as well. So whether it's in a rack or whether it's on a shelf or wall mountable as well, we've designed the rack ears to be used in the same bolts, in the same threaded holes as the mounting bolts. For surface mounting as well. So again, it's all there for any kind of scenario that you need. Again, we've kind of shown the deeper units of the amplifiers here with a gap in between them. The ventilation pulls in through the front and out through the top, so you know it's probably best to leave a gap for ventilation. The other thing you can do is place the streaming units in between the amplifiers or above the amplifiers, and that'll automatically create a space because the streaming units are shallower than the amplified units. So you'll get a better idea of that on the next slide. So here's the PA460. That's it connected to an SA2120, and that's an S1 on the end. So you can combine any, we've got 2 depths of units and you can combine them in any combination like that. So that's pretty cool, and as far as I know, there's no one else doing anything like that. It keeps it nice and simple. And then another little neat feature that we've added is, again, a tool-free PHX connector. So this is for your speaker connections, and it's a snap-on speaker connector that means you don't have to, use those little screwdrivers to screw down the cables. So that, again, makes it nice and easy. Supports up to a 12 AWG cable, so decent for longer cable runs as well. Again, just simplifies it. 2 of these are included in the box with the PA460 and the SA2120. One other thing to notice, as I said at the start, all of the packaging is paper or cardboard, apart from the plastic sleeve that the unit has to come in. So again, you're not making separate piles of recyclable materials. It makes it nice and easy to dispose of if you've got lots of units. All right, so some of the other key technologies outside of that ease of installation and rack mounting, let's run through some of those. First one, of course, being BlueOS on the S1 and the SA2120. I won't go into a lot of detail here. I'm assuming anyone on this call knows what BlueOS is and knows some of the benefits of that. It's a high-res multi-room streaming platform, and you'll get all the benefits of all of the endpoints, the integrated streaming services, the control drivers, 64 zones per system, all of that. Again, that's something to cover in a separate session, but we've got that built into these 2 products. For amplification, as I say, on the PA460 and the SA2120, we're using direct digital. This was originally, we developed this for our Master Series product some time ago. And basically, it keeps the signal in the digital domain. So you give it a digital signal, it will keep it digital, amplify it in digital, and then output it as an analog signal. So typically what will happen in a Class D amp is it will convert it to analog first, then amplify it. By doing it in the digital domain, it means you don't need a DAC, and it's just very efficient to do it in digital. So it sounds great. It's got very low noise, very low THD. It's also very, very efficient, which means it runs really cool. We can do a small form factor with it. And like all of our NED amplifiers, we have a good current output. We're load invariant, so we can drive lower impedance loads and deal with long cable runs. And where it comes into its own is when you're using it on a streaming amplifier like the SA2120, where probably 99% of your source content is digital. It just makes sense to keep it digital for as long as you can before you convert it back out over the speaker outputs. So yeah, as I say, both the PA460 and the SA2120 are using the same amplification platform. On the PA460, we use a really high quality analog to digital converter to take those line inputs and put them into digital. Another neat feature on the two amplified models is dynamic power management. So this is on both the PA460 and the SA2120. Basically, both products have 240 watts of power. And what dynamic power management will do is it will detect a load on each output. So it will sense if there's a load connected and it will distribute the power accordingly. So if you only connect a load, a pair of speakers to output one, it will give 120 watts per channel to output one. As soon as you connect a pair of speakers to output two, it'll apply limiters to those channels and spread the power 4x60. So it makes the amps really, really versatile and gives them a couple of different use cases in terms of being capable of driving more power to a larger pair of speakers in stereo or spreading the sound around a little bit over four outputs. And again, it's all done automatically. There's no need to reconfigure it and there's no need for bridging. This is just a little table that shows you the different configurations. So you've got 4x60 or 2x120. And then you can, into a 4-ohm load, you can use a mono channel and just use them as, you can get 200 watts into a 4-ohm load in mono. The advantage over bridging with this is that obviously bridging puts more strain on the amplifier, which increases the heat output, it increases noise and THD potentially, it reduces the damping factor, and it also halves the load impedance. So this doesn't do any of that. It makes it much, much simpler and you don't have to wire things in a different way. It's just connect them as you need them and it'll distribute the power. So that's a really neat feature. Okay, we talked about having dual stereo outputs, and we've got those on both of the BlueOS enabled products. So you can see on the SA2120 and the S1, we've got this second pair of outputs. It's obviously at speaker level on the SA2120 and at pre-out level on the S1. They're both one zone products. The second output mirrors the first in terms of both the source and volume out of the box. They're just a mirror of output one. And in particular, what it does is it gives you quite a lot of flexibility on the SA2120 because it uses the dynamic power management. It can either output 2x120 or 4x60. So let's have a look at some of the use cases. So number one out of the box, plug in output one to a larger pair of more powerful speakers that need more power. You've got 2x120 and a nice stereo system. So whether you're driving a stereo soundbar or a pair of nice on-wall speakers or bookshelf speakers, you've got that 2x120 media room type system. Use the HDMI eARC, Wi-Fi if you need it, calibrate it with Dirac. You can pair it with a sub or take the physical sub out into an active subwoofer. So that's option number one. Option number two, you maybe got a larger space with 4 speakers in it. Maybe it's a bigger room or an open plan space, and what you want is an even spread of sound across the space rather than having the audio at one side of the room. And this just allows you to connect that second pair of outputs and go 4x60 watts with a nice even room fill. So that's use case number two. So again, it might be a system in a room with a TV connected and you're spreading the sound around a little.
Peter,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, just a quick question. So, and you might be about to answer it actually, but so did it mention a couple of slides ago that you could turn the individual, so it's one zone of BlueOS, right?
Yep.
But the outputs can be individually switched on or off, or the volumes can be controlled independently.
I'm about to explain it, yeah. So that's
Okay,
the
sorry.
slide I'm
Yeah, I was just
currently
wondering how it's
showing
going to work.
is the third use case. So the third mode for these outputs is really the party trick. So this is, we're calling it, I can't think of a snappier name. It's called main zone subzone mode. I didn't want to call it zone AB or zone 1, 2 because I think that misleads you into thinking it is two independent zones. It's not really because the source is always going to be the same, but where you've got a larger space or a space with an adjoining room, what this allows you to do is share one source. But as you said, what you can actually do is turn the second zone on or off and have independent volume control, and that's manageable through BlueOS. So what we'll have is a configuration within BlueOS where you can have your main zone with volume control, and then you can have this second, what we call the subzone, um, and it basically appears as two grouped players within BlueOS. And I'll show you how that looks in the app in a second in terms of configuring it. So where it comes in ideal is a master bedroom with an ensuite or an open plan kitchen dining area or a room with a terrace adjoining. It's really nice for that space where you're more or less always going to be sharing the same source or having two players grouped at the moment. This allows you to do it from one player. So again, simplifying the installation and the setup. So this is how it would look in the BlueOS app. You've got your living room zone. You would click your three dots to get your audio settings up. And then within audio settings, you'll see down here you've got subzone. You'll be able to turn that on. And when you do that, you'll get an additional context menu, which will allow you to name that subzone, set the output mode as stereo or mono, set your volume limits as you would in any other player. And then from there, what you'll see when you go back to the player screen is you've now got this additional menu showing you your active zones. So you've got active zones here. When you click that, you'll get this context menu here, which allows you to choose whether you've got both zones on, just the main zone, or just the subzone. And then when you've got all zones on, what you're seeing here is you've got two volume sliders, so you'll be able to adjust the volume of each of them independently. So it's one player, one source, but two zones. So
Yeah.
we've called it main zone, subzone to try and avoid that confusion of it being independently selectable sources.
Pretty
Does
cool.
that
I
make
mean, I'm
sense?
guessing in future driver updates that will be, controllable via
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
API, so you can just use a
Yeah, I
button.
think I showed it on the last slide. There'll be API commands for the subzone, so there'll be discrete API commands to turn it on and off and adjust the volume. So you'll have control through a control system or the BlueOS app.
Cool.
And again, we've got that on the S1 as well at pre-out level, and where that becomes useful is sometimes four channels might not be enough. 240 watts of power might not be enough. So doing it at pre-out level, again, out of the box, they're just mirroring each other. When you enable the subzone within BlueOS, you'll get the independent volume control over the two sets of pre-outs. So where you've got two larger spaces where maybe you need four channels per room, rather than running them in parallel, or maybe they're 4 ohm speakers and you don't want to do that, you can run an 8 channel amp. Maybe you need DSP in there to deal with some room correction, so you could use a DSP amplifier. You could set up some 2.1 systems with crossovers if you're using a DSP amp. Or maybe one of the zones is outside and you want to run it from a 100 volt or a 70 volt line amplifier. So the other option there is I've got my main zone is in the house. I'm using low impedance amp to drive some in-ceiling speakers, but on the terrace outside, I'm using a landscape system, which is using a 100 volt line amplifier. So it's just giving you the flexibility over the amplification using the pre-outs. Okay. There's an example, just showing you the pre-out level. So you could be connecting the main zone to a PA460 to drive some speakers in the kitchen, and then outside your 100 volt line. This is another really cool feature. This is the programmable trigger interface. So this is really, I haven't seen this on any other audio brand. It's kind of, it's using a few control systems, but we brought it into these audio products. So this is a programmable trigger input. So what it'll do is it'll sense a trigger coming in and going it'll sense the trigger either a change in status going from high to low or low to high. And what you'll be able to do within BlueOS is assign certain functions to that. So some of the feedback we get from the market is on smaller installations, trying to avoid using a whole home control system if you don't need to. And so we wanted to be able to provide just a little bit of low level automation. And that's what this programmable trigger input gives you. We've also got IR input there as well as a backup if you need it. You've got IR learning built into BlueOS, of course, and it'll work with the BlueOS remote if you need to. This is the user interface. So what you'll do is this won't be a setting that you can configure in the app. We wouldn't want end users playing around with this. So this will be available through the BlueOS control panel on the IP address on a web page. So you'll have an option for configuring your input triggers, and it'll bring up a window that looks something like this. This is a mock-up I've put together. So you'll be able to turn the 12-volt trigger function on and off. Once it's on, you'll have, when the trigger goes from low to high, you'll have a drop-down menu with some pre-populated API commands, which will tell the player to do something. So it can either be mute, unmute, play, pause, play a chime, as we do on the CI580. Don't forget, this is a feature we kind of already have on the CI580, but it's limited to door chimes. We're just extending that out to do more. It could trigger a source change. It could select HDMI 1 or optical input. And actually, what we plan to do is have a box where you can take the public API document that we have and basically put in any API command you want there. So it's going to be really configurable. And then you'll also have the option of when the trigger goes from high to low, do you want it to do something? So it'll obviously have the option of do nothing, or it'll have the option of maybe doing the reverse command. So you might want it to mute and unmute. If you're integrating with an alarm system or a fire safety system, you can do it that way. You can have it play a chime, then stop playing the chime. You can have it start playing a preset. So it allows you to start using motion sensors or triggers to do basically anything within the player that the API supports. So again, it's just a very low level of automation to try and help you use just the audio system and not have to integrate it to a deeper level with a control system where maybe the budget of the project doesn't cover that. All right. I mentioned the S1, so PoE is something we're going to be doing on any product that doesn't have amplifiers in it in this range. The plan is to have it PoE enabled. So again, we just see so many projects now where there's a PoE switch going in already to power access points, touch panels, security cameras. So there's already PoE switches in play. If you budget for enough power, you'll now be able to drive any of your BlueOS enabled streamers from there. They use less than 10 watts of power, so they're not taking up an awful lot. And again, it just reduces the cabling, it reduces the requirement on the number of PDUs you might need. And you've got the option to remote power cycle as well through a PoE switch like that as well. So again, you don't have to invest the extra on a smart PDU if you don't need to. But we don't want to limit people to using PoE. Obviously, there'll be a lot of projects where there might not be a PoE switch, so we've given the option of DC power or PoE. So you've got the 12 volt DC power input there. We've gone with a Phoenix connector. We'll supply a DC power supply. Doing it on a PHX connector just allows you to trim the cable and keep all the cabling neat and tidy in the rack. It'll always prioritize DC, so if you do happen to plug it into a live PoE port, it won't take the power. It'll just draw the power from the DC input as a protection. But as soon as you unplug the DC power, it would default over to the PoE power. So we think that's a really neat feature for integrators, and again, it just simplifies and eases the install. And then another technology that we're using on the SA2120 is direct room correction, of course, which is available on a number of our products. We'll have the SA2120 is direct ready, so you pay the extra $99 for a license. You'll be able to use the calibration kit we're selling on the Blue Sound website, or your own microphone if you want to do that. So yeah, again, it just allows you to dial in the performance of that system. On the S1, the single zone streamer, we can include it. We're in two minds about whether to do that or not. It's fairly easy to turn it on within the player, but the difficulty with doing it on a stereo streamer like that is if you're taking it in a CI scenario and running into a 4 or 8 channel amplifier, Dirac can only see the pre-outs. It can only see right and left. It can't see that you're connecting it to maybe 4, 6, or 8 channels of audio. So you wouldn't be able to do a proper measurement or calibration because you're not getting 4 discrete audio signals. So we could include it so that you can just do it in a stereo scenario, which is the same on the SA2120. It'll only work on the output 1 stereo pair. And again, it would be a Dirac ready thing. So that's something we'll have to make a call on quite soon and make sure it's available in the final product if we want it to be. So yeah, so that kind of covers the main features as an overview. there's a lot of cool technology and new stuff in there. We can do something more detailed once the products are in the market. I think we can cover off some more detail and some more detailed use cases once we get to that point. But hopefully I'll put that first slide up. Hopefully we've met the brief in terms of the ease of installation, compact, efficient, quality and reliability, and then that flexibility as well. Hopefully we've managed that. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to join and look in and get a look at these products. Hope you found it worthwhile.